G'day and welcome to Scarcely Relevant, which is what I am. I'm not important. I'm really interested in the people I'm going to get to talk to. Starting up today is our first episode with Jesse Norris, who is the reviews editor and podcast producer for Xboxera. So generally, I like to get a quote from somebody close to them to get a bit of an understanding. So I got this quote from John Clark, the co-founder of Xboxera. Quote, when I met Jesse, he was an enthusiastic volunteer who had never edited a single video but really wanted to learn. 4 and a bit years later, he has confidently cemented himself as the backbone of what Xboxera is, a community-driven and fiercely independent publication. His countless reviews, videos, and incredible work ethic made it possible for me to take the leap and join him. And the past 9 months have been one hell of an incredible adventure, and I'm so lucky he came on board. He doesn't get enough credit for how much he's pushed the whole team, who are all awesome, to do better. End quote. So there's an idea of the people who are close to Jesse and how much he matters to them. So we're going to jump into the episode and discover everything from how we got started to the things that they're pushing to do in the future. Just as a quick warning, there were a few technical issues throughout the episode, so video and audio quality has been cleaned up as much as I possibly can, but there will be little bits and pieces here and there. Apologies in advance, and a big thank you for Jesse actually helping me diagnose these issues while we were doing the interview. So thank you again. We'll get straight into the episode. Welcome to Scarcely Relevant. In this case, I'm scarcely relevant because I have with me Jesse Norris, the reviews editor and producer for Xboxera, and so many other jobs that are involved with it. So thank you for making the time for me.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you for having me. It's always a lot of fun to do things like this.
All right. I am jumping in here quick. So Jesse Norris, 293 listed reviews as your byline as of today.
That covers video games.
That covers the video games.
You throw in books, some TV shows, and physical. I think it's like 350. Ridiculous, man.
Easily. You're actually well within your 300 shot, because I've got here your first review was July of 2019. Your 100th review was July 7th, 2022, which puts it that you reviewed about 100 video games for Xboxera in a period of roughly a year, which I'll admit is quite impressive.
And that was fully part-time while
that was fully part-time while doing your Associate of Arts and Sciences at Paso Hernando State College, and then going on to your Bachelor of Applied Sciences, Computer IT Administration and Management at St. Petersbury College in Pinellas County, Florida.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Pinellas, they like to say around here.
Ah, yes. Well, Australian. We don't have words like that.
Sometimes you get the double L and it actually is a ya, but not always here in America.
Okay, so I've got all of that correct.
Mm-hmm.
You were a volunteer sanctuary feeder for a period of about 4 years, feeding and helping with animals. And you're also...
It was a little place right next to my in-laws. That was like a primate place.
Awesome. And you're also the audience surrogate and co-host of Deceptive Methods, which is a historical conspiracies podcast that you started with your partner.
Yep.
And you've been together for over a decade, 2 kids. I've got every detail so far.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent. First icebreaker question is, what's the thing you're most proud of in the amazing shelves behind you? For all of the podcasts and all of the producing you've done, there's always so much to see, and it's kind of catching the glimpses.
Mm-hmm.
So
there's so much. Like, you don't even get to see up there where all the kids' Funkos and everything are. They really like them a lot. I got my wife this the Diva one on the bottom right. I always forget about that. She gets all the Halo stuff. It's all her. The Halo 5 limited edition, the Halo Reach limited edition, the Halo 3 limited edition. All her. Yeah, when you go lower, like I built the 360 that's there. That's the Mega Bloks 360.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, actually I can show you that real quick. It's always relevant.
And you've also got your MetaQuest 3 off to the side as well. It's almost everything at arm's reach.
Yeah, because not that big of a house. But so yeah, so this was the Mega Bloks one. It lights up when you press the button and stuff. Got a little battery in there. This can pop off. I forget exactly which one. I think it's this one. Pops off. You can see inside. But I'm not risking that. It does have the whole
No,
back and everything too. I built this all on stream. It was a lot of fun.
okay.
Oh, there's so much.
I will admit, uh, actually,
Comes
just
with a fake little Halo 3.
see, I've got all of those things in the. I've got the proper ones all behind me in the collection. It's been slowly over the years. I've been pulling it all together to finally have it,
Mm-hmm.
but I didn't get the Mega Bloks one because for some reason in Australia we're Lego country. Like
Mm. Well,
I
it's Mattel, so I guess if Mattel doesn't do your country as much, that's what they do. Funny enough, I also got this. They sent me this well after I had done the review for Redfall.
oh
Still is one of my favorite controllers. I'd like to let one of my kids have it, but they break all their controllers, so I have not. It's really nice looking, and people always say they use it to bribe me to enjoy the game, but no, I just was crazy enough to
no,
actually really like it.
yeah. Well, on that, we'll get into Redfall and some of the reviews and everything else. Also, as the other icebreaker question, what is it about the Division 2 that brings you back time and time again? It's one of those games that it seems to really sit with you. Is it the gameplay? Is it the world? Is it the combination of all those things?
They confidently aped a lot of my favorite stuff from Diablo 3. Because Diablo 3 Reaper's Souls is like my favorite live service game.
Okay.
Diablo 4 is getting there. They've started to go, oh, yeah, we had a lot of cool shit in Reaper of Souls we should have brought along with us. They're slowly doing it. But Division 3 just always played great, always looked great. Now it runs better on console. And they have just, it died. It went on
Yes.
sale. People bought the shit out of it. And then after that, they spun up a team to just do a ton of content for it. Like there is no one similar to Ubisoft where I really like the Division. They got it in a good spot because they just kept supporting it. They then made two and had the problem that so many have where they didn't bring all the stuff that they had done in two over. Same thing happened with Destiny. Um, but they just keep at it better than anyone. As many problems as they are having right now, there are a lot.
Yeah.
That game and the support it got, and it's just this really fun, mindless jump in and end up streaming 20 hours of it in a week somehow type of game for me.
I was going to say the amount of time in there is impressive. Do you find that is the style of game that's what I refer to as a podcast game? That if you just need to sit back, you're like, I want to listen to this, and you know it's about an hour or two. You jump in, you play something, you engage with something where you can switch off, listen to something, and not have to be entirely engaged.
Yeah, it's that, like, the story's not great in the Division. It never has been.
No.
They've actually been pushing it a lot more lately in interesting ways. But yeah, it really is that thing where as long as I can hear where things are coming from, I don't have to pay attention to them otherwise. So I've got one of my four screens either has like a YouTube video or a podcast playing in the headsets alongside it. So yeah, it is very much that I have to pay attention to what I'm doing, but my ears don't have to pay as much attention. And my
Yeah.
brain isn't focused on listening to a story in this thing. So I will always have something else on at the same time and just kind of zone out.
Okay. Well, uh, okay. So that kind of starts us off. One, I'm exactly the same. The Division has hundreds upon hundreds of hours for me. At a point, it was just even during 1.6 for the original Division One, which you remember
Mm.
was, oh, that was rough. Like that was the epitome of the statement of a bullet sponge enemy. But I still just spent that time listening to things and just enjoying walking around a city. Oh, always
Hmm.
fun. All right, so I want to start a bit with how Xbox Era came to be, but also how you've kind of grown into the role. So with your review, at that point you were a collaborator, you did reviews, submitted them to the site. Obviously, John and Nick were kind of, in a sense, editorial at that point. So you'd submit a
Nick has
review.
never done any work.
I wasn't going to say it as cleanly as that, but now that you have,
So
I
yeah,
can
I
go in
can
on
give
it.
you the nitty gritty of it. As far as I know, Nick and John was talking on the old Resetera forum, saying he wanted to start up a podcast about the platform of Xbox, and then somebody said, "Oh, you should talk to this guy. He's been saying the same thing." And that's how he met Nick. They started their podcast with a real crazy guy in the first few episodes, then brought on someone I wasn't the biggest fan of in the rest. Sure, they're very nice, but I couldn't. I never actually watched the show because I found them so annoying. Um, Even when I was working there, I never watched. I don't want to say
I
it.
was going to say for the old style,
Mm-hmm.
I've actually got some points. So this is episode 40, like
Mm-hmm.
very early in it. And I imagine that even if you didn't watch, you kind of looked at it and went, this can be done better. So in
I didn't
becoming
watch because it was so ugly. It was so bad looking. If you go to some of the early ones, my God, because they would use Skype for NDI before we
yes,
swapped over to StreamYard, which gives just a way better look and a lot less latency. And I just build. I never used OBS. I never really written anything before. It was just kind of I'm bored at home and sick of my crappy job, so I'm just gonna start writing for this because it was on Resetera. Don't know why I joined it at some point. Somebody said, "Hey, this might be a place to talk about video games," and it was, but not really Xbox. So joined there. Ended up talking to Nick. Got into their secret Discord. That's just
this
a bunch of
the
regular people,
secret.
and then some industry people who never talk. And then from there, heard that they were doing a podcast. Tried watching it. Was like, oh god. But then saw they were doing reviews and stuff, and so started watching them. Was like I could try one of those, and so I just picked Recore Definitive Edition out of the pile and gave it a go. And I wrote it, but I did not do the video or anything. And then a few months later, I did Wasteland 3 because
Wasteland 3,
yeah,
yes.
Figments, the past podcast host, was supposed to do it, but was unable to. And so I did Wasteland, which I really liked. I gave it like a round of 9 or 9.2 or something, and kind of cut the bug. I ended up doing Cyberpunk. We didn't get things early back then. Yeah, so it was kind of just random. I randomly decided to join a forum. Randomly, one day saw Nick say, "Hey, do people want to be in the server?" And then on that forum, and then randomly was like, "I'll try writing a review." And that's why, if you've gone through my early ones, they're not very good. Not that they're great now, but
Well,
they're better.
but that's also an interesting part for it, is that you really jumped in and just got into it. You didn't have what I call the analysis paralysis that a lot of people do, where you go, I'm not a good writer, I'm not a good podcaster, I'm not a good this. Nobody is at the start. It's about kind of just doing until you learn it. And there's also we're going to be jumping everywhere, because when you brought up cyberpunk, there's also a very particular thing that I've noticed with your writing and the way you approach things. Uh, so I'll just bring this up. This is the page for the Xbox era review for
Yeah, they look
Cyberpunk
so.
2077, and then
Pre-drag's work on those is so good, but we can't put ads into them, so we can't do them very often.
I was going to say, how long did this take for graphic design, like working with pre-drag? Was it
I pretty much said, "Hey, pre-drag, do you want to make this one look pretty? I'm gonna have it done really early, because I got the code early. I had it all done. As long as I have the text written, I gave him like 6 days to make it, and this is what he came up with in those six
Jesus?
days. So he's just
That's an
really,
impressive.
no, he is. Every time you look at Xbox era and you're like, wow, that they look amazing. They look professional. We have no money. We are not professional, but we have an unbelievably talented graphic designer who loves doing this stuff essentially for free.
Well, it's one of those key things. It really caught my attention when the review came out, and I'm seeing this instead of the way a lot of reviews and and content out there is formatted where it has a set designs look, and it's meant to serve the ads, it's meant to serve the additional content. But as you go through it, the fact of embedding the videos into everything so that people can go to it, even text choices, making it fit with exactly the theme and style. Is that something that you really looked at when I want this to pop, or is it I've got this ready? What can we do to improve it?
I
Is it driven by yourself?
saw it at the same time everyone else did. It is
Oh wow!
entirely
So
pre-direct. So it's I will write everything. I will get it all in there. I'll have it all set and sorted exactly how I want it to look. And then I'm like, okay, do your magic, because I don't know how. So he does. There's a very basic editor. You look at any of the other reviews. That's the normal. That's what I do.
yep.
Like I try to make them look nice. Sometimes I get colors in there, and I always take all my own screenshots when I can, depending on where I'm reviewing something. Like it's all my gameplay. It's not a press kit if I can avoid it. But like that one, Lies of P, and especially Starfield. My God, the job he did on Starfield.
It,
It's all, as long as I can give him enough time. Like that's my big contribution, is giving him, like, I got Starfield 2 weeks early. We were able to say we had it when it was coming. I played 110 hours and beat it in 7 days, and went through and beat it like twice. Like I went through, and that gave
Jesus.
him a week to do the ridiculous job he did on it. Some of the videos that he made broke over time, but still, it's one of the best looking things I've ever seen.
Yeah, and also just it's incredible to see a great graphic designer. They pick in on the style, the key elements, and be able to propagate it throughout the page and
Mm-hmm.
have it just flow. That it, it's amazing, like in a sense that yeah, it can just be really talented people, no money, and you go, I I want to do more. So I'm interested in that. It's something that I imagine for bigger games, it's something you do to kind of improve. With Starfield, Cyberpunk, and the other bigger titles, have you had PR or developer feedback where they've seen the review and gone, "Oh, wow, that's kind of more than we were expecting," not just in a score, but how you present it.
Yeah, it's. I think one of our like a place we've been different from a lot of other sites is we tried to do a video on most stuff. Like we've had hundreds of videos, video reviews most years, over 100. Like, and there's only 3 video editors. It's myself, Sick Mechanico, and Ursel, aka Soul Blazers. Nick will do his
Okay.
own, but he's only doing a couple of years because he's working full time otherwise. So it really is. And Predrake actually did one for somebody. But so we have a lot of writers. Um, Myself, Ursel does some. John's doing more and more. Cengiz Husamedin, who's like does a billion of them, and Gyozabaki, who does a billion of them. Like a bunch of people writing, but for the actual making the videos, it's just 3 of us. So that's like our differentiator that we try and push. And I think a lot of companies really like that they get an article and they get a video. They never have any say or ask ever about editorial, like no control. You have your embargo restrictions on what they were like, please don't talk about this because we don't want it spoiled. But even then, it is a request. It's not like an NDA. Only like 2K and some other publishers ever really go for the NDA thing, but that is entirely about don't leak stuff. Um, so our
Okay.
big thing to in building relationships with PR companies has been our biggest strength, and it's not, oh, they're going to give us a good review. It's they're going to give us an honest review. Never going for that rage bait side that I think you see in so many places.
Okay, because that kind of leads into the question with building up your skills, everybody learning how to review in dealing with PR and developers. There's a lot to learn in it in how you communicate the back and forth, understanding and respecting. If like some people will discuss things or go, I'm not meant to talk about this, but I'm going to because it generates the interest
Mm-hmm.
for them. how has that learning been when you've kind of progressed from not just being the review, but the reviews editor, and then managing and handling PR companies contacting, supplying review codes, and then working with your team to go, okay, you're doing this, these are the elements that have been requested. It is requested, it is not a demand. How do you manage that, and especially with new writers, how do you bring people up to speed to really be at the same level and operate how you want to?
It's a funny thing. Before I'd ever done this, I'd never written like a review. I'd never done any video editing. I'd never I had never opened OBS in my life. It's all just been quickly learning, but I've always been a tech geek and a quick learner. Um, so much of it is just common sense and knowing how businesses work, knowing that you are not owed anything, that they are looking to work with you
Yeah.
for their PR, whether it's good or bad, will be on the quality of the thing
Okay.
as long as you're being honest. They're not like I gave a 4 out of 10 to a game once. It was very bad, and they were like, "Yep, here's the next one." When it was time for the next thing, they're like, "As long as you are honest about it." There's only a couple of companies that I've never worked with, but I have been told can be vindictive if you don't say the things they want, and they think you're
Yeah.
overly negative. And we all know who the big one is. You can just ask Survivor. But
Oh yes,
yeah.
I actually know quite a few of the writers
Mhm.
for Survivor.
Yeah, no. So
Uh,
they're the one. Other than that, it is mostly just common sense. Be nice. Don't be kind. Like be nice, but be realistic about it. Don't ass kiss. It's really obvious. We have had people who thought that the only way to get ahead was to constantly kiss butt, and when it's really obvious, and people just stop believing what you have to say half the time. Um,
so it, so when that happens, how do you manage that for overseeing the editorial process for reviews? How how do you kind of work with people to kind of go, that's not really what we do, because
only
it can
only had the issue
it
once so far, and
okay.
it was constant and constantly trying to get them to stop, and then eventually finding out more about them and firing them, but or kicking them off. It's not firing when there's no money involved, but I mean, for the most part, I handle all the emails to most PR companies. The only one that Sick has like the only contact with is Microsoft UK or Xbox UK. Um,
Yeah,
but
primarily
me,
because of his location.
because he started it first, we're just a UK company in their eyes. We're not American, and so I am American,
Oh,
which
okay.
does help a lot. It is way easier to get things, especially anything physical or trips or anything like that in America, because so many of these publishers and companies just spend more over
Operate
here.
primarily, yeah.
Yeah.
Much where we were leaving off there was about the embargoes, the events, the, be kind,
Mm.
uh, which I think is something that a lot of people are starting to look for now in their reviews, in being able to go, okay, this game isn't great, but do you have to denigrate the people? Do you have to question? Do the developers know what they're doing? Nobody intends to make a bad product ever, uh, unless you're trying to sink money and everything else.
You're a
But that's
fanatic.
yeah, it's it
They're
it never
the day before guys, and they just put up another
yeah.
Kickstarter, but it's all like
Oh
AI and
yes,
it's all AI and basic Unity stuff. It's whatever. Allegedly, supposedly.
allegedly, supposedly yes, but we'll we'll leave them to do their own thing. Like, there for the grace of
Mm.
God go they. Um, an interesting side part for it is that when it comes to when you're talking with your reviewers and going, okay, we've got these games, is is kind of a passion or an interest in the game a good starting point? Uh,
For us now, it's everything because it is essentially them giving up their free time to do it. Like, and they're doing it because they love to, and they want to build the site into something that can potentially be more of an overall business. So most of the reviews we do are when people ask me to go find them something. Like, hey,
Okay.
Sonic Generations is coming out. Can you request that from Sega? So I do that, like that type of thing. The Shadow, whatnot. Like I just,
Yeah, the Sonic
yeah,
X Shadow.
like we're doing Metaphor Refantasio because Cengiz likes Atlas games and wants to review it because it's
Okay.
110 hours at least. So I'm not going to just ask anyone to do that. I did Persona 5 myself, but I'm not going to ask anyone else.
Yeah, and especially Royale Edition, just the the extra month or two
Mm-hmm.
in game. Oh God. So do you find that helps in working with your staff to make sure that people don't get burnt out? Like when it is a longer game, when you're putting in 100 hours, even for yourself, is there at any point a moment where you or someone has gone, I don't think this is the game for me. I'm not the best person to review this. And in those moments, do you go, well, put it in the review, like you're the person, you're the opinion, you're the voice for this. If it's not your thing, then you say it, but highlight the good and bad, or do you kind of step back and go, all right, it's not for you. Does anybody else, from what they've seen, is it better to hand it off to another reviewer? Do you take over yourself? How do you manage those things to kind of make sure that a game's getting a fair shake, but at the same time, it's sometimes you can't bring
Mm.
another person in and just go, okay, the last 2 weeks of embargoed work out the window. Let's start from scratch.
Most of the time, you only get a week in general. Like just it's mostly a week
Oof.
turnaround. Sometimes it's 2 weeks. The rare occasion it's three or more. Um, and we very rarely get more than one code. Yeah, I have to
So,
push. A lot of the smaller ones just have a very limited amount. Like even Balatro, there's only 20 Android codes. Like I got one
okay.
because
Yep.
they know me and they know I covered the console version. Now I'm playing the shit out of the phone one. It's great. It's out
Yep.
already. Like they couldn't get it to work early. They were trying. Um, but no, for the most part, it's like if you take it, then you're going to do it. And if you're not going to be able to finish it in time, it is what it is. Not going to force it. Like don't burn yourself out. Um, I normally take all the longest stuff because I just could do these all day, every day without getting burned out. Just the way I'm wired,
Okay.
essentially. Like when Hi Fi Rush came out and I played it and did the review in 15 hours straight
I
right
s-
after the
I
direct. I
remember watching.
remember,
I
yeah,
remember watching you doing the reacts to that direct. The
mhm,
game goes, it's releasing now, and just you watching your face just go, pull up a controller, start downloading it and playing it,
mhm.
which I think you were one of the first, if not the first
Oh, I was
review
first
that
by
was
like a day and
out.
a half or 2 days, I
Yeah,
think. That's why that one
which
hit 20K out of nowhere. That's why I did it. But I remember like Vinny Caravella of Nextlander was like, man, I hope someone didn't force him to. And I was like, well, I'm the reviews editor and I would never ask anyone else to do that. Like, Jenkins is playing ReFantasio all weekend, but it's because he really wants to. Like,
yeah, it's for some games, someone will go, oh God, yes, I'm throwing myself into it, and
mhm.
you can't pull them back from it. You just go,
Yeah,
oh,
we're a very small group of people who get really into certain things and then we play the hell out of them. Nick only does that with Nintendo. John can do that with quite a few things in a few genres. I can do that with almost anything. I have no interest in Crusader Kings 3, but I still played like 40 hours of it and quite enjoyed it. I haven't touched it since, but that game's amazing for what it wants to be. Like, I've never been able to marry a 5-year-old to an 80-year-old in a game before. Um,
well, there's always new steps, new
and
new options,
they were cousins, because of course.
and they're cousins because they have to be for Crusader
Oh,
Kings.
it's
Like if
royalty. That is
yeah,
royalty.
we hope it's not
Habsburgs
royalty
don't
these
chin
days.
themselves.
Well, I kind of hope that royalty isn't like that anymore, but who knows?
Of course it is. It's I mean it's we see it with celebrities, it's the same thing. But yeah, like
Yeah.
so much of how do the reviews work is essentially what is your reach? If it's really small, there are some who will work with you. There are sites like Press Engine and Keymailer and others that will get you on the like creator list. You won't be
Okay.
press until you're bigger. So we were always creator list, and you get things at launch or sometimes right before launch, but most creators are not trustworthy, so rarely before launch. It is, and then it's just building up trust, and you build up trust with those people you work with. You get more and more stuff out there. Like we've got going on 700 reviews, I think now. I'm gonna be over 300 by the end of the year. Like it is so much.
I was going to say probably end of next week you'll be at over 300, considering your current rate.
Shattered Space is Monday. No early access for anyone on that. So just literally streaming it all day and doing a review. Kind of like I did with the Cuphead DLC, which was early access, but they didn't realize I would have said okay to Steam, and it wasn't early access on console. It was only PC because Steam will let you put anything on there. They have no standards.
Yes.
And
it is the free and open market.
If you want, do you want me to just walk through what I've learned on the whole review thing? Is that interesting at all? It won't be long.
That was actually
it can be an
that was where that was going to be the next question.
Up in a second.
Yeah, that's all right. Okay, so where we left off before the technical difficulties music kicked in, the lessons, what you've learned about the review process, how to work with people, how to best manage expectations, how to take requests, what are the lessons that you've learned that you feel people should be aware of when it comes to stepping into reviewing, content creation, like all of these realms that you've come into? It's been very interesting that you've got a very structure and guidelines of everything that you learn. So do you want to
so
run through
much
that?
of it? Yeah. So pretty much it started, we were just like, what are things that are in Game Pass or that we own that we can cover? And then the occasional get something. Wasteland was John getting lucky and people being like, hey, I like your podcast and I see you do reviews. You want to review this type of stuff? That was one luck way of getting it, but so much of it is just gumption, the old ass word. Like, just I have done so many reviews, and we as a site have done so many for things we didn't have interest in, but the PR company was like, hey, do you want to do it? And we're like, sure, we will do it, because you're enormous. 47 PR, you represent everyone, like Sega, Capcom, Bethesda, Bandai Namco, EA. Like they represent pretty much everybody. So whenever they come to you and they're like, hey, do you want to do this? If there's any chance that we can, I would always do it. And that was so many of my reviews. It's like any opportunity you have that you can healthily do, you got to go for. And if you say you're going to do it, you got to do it. If you're not going to be able to, you got to let them know. That's only happened a few times, really. And it's mostly just been bugs and stuff like that then they are happy to try and work with you to fix. In the end, it's just a hell of a lot of work making sure you figure, like, if you don't know what professionalism is, which I think a lot of people online will look at you being like, I have built up a good relationship with this PR company, and they think, oh, that means that you're a sycophant for them and you just give them all a good score. And it's like, no, they just trust that if I say we're going to cover something, we will cover it. We will give it our best. We will not burn bridges. I think that is the biggest advice I can give. There's pretty much never any benefit to burning a bridge with anyone in a position like that. For the most time, just take the high road and ignore it and don't get into the drama. Try and tell it to Nick all the time. He doesn't listen very often.
He's from Melbourne, and they're very headstrong. Headstrong people tend to have that. So with all of those elements, having to consider others, is that now something that you look at when you start looking at collaborators? If you're going, this person wants to review, I'm going to give them a shot. Do you guide people through that and go, this is how we approach it, this is what we expect from you? Or is it that's the guidance that happens after you've got a review on your hands?
We've had so many people reach out, like, wanting to do it because they think we are a company that can offer, like, payment. And like, we have people from legitimate companies that are like, I go through and I love your site, I love your stuff, I'd love to work for you. And it's like, I hope that someday we get to that point. As it is right now, the Patreon, and so we got three main revenue sources. It's Patreon, website ad money, and YouTube ad money. And between those three, it's just enough to cover all the costs of running the website and everything, and paying John and me. And it's not like neither of us are making full-time salaries. We're still working up to that. So it has been, there's always that push and pull. Like, that's why we are pretty small. We had more people before, but it was all volunteer. It's always been that. So I'm not normally looking for more people to do reviews. I don't need any writers. We already put out more than most sites that do video. I think we put out more than almost every site that does videos that isn't like one of the big, we have 150 employee places. Like, for our size, I always feel really good about it, and it's at the point where I don't have to baby anything ever. We have a project Discord. We use that. Everyone has the same basic access to put up their own stuff on the website for others to then go look and help edit. So once you've played a game, you've written your first draft, gone through it a little bit, and get it up on the website. And our writing is in general a script for a video, so it might read a little different and not be as. We also really try and focus on not spoiling stuff, and I know I could probably write 2 times as many words on most reviews, but then it's mostly just giving away everything in a game. But the general process is big games coming, I reach out to PR to get codes for it, or smaller game or really small games coming, someone says, hey, I would really like to do this one, like that 9 Souls one that just got announced for Game Pass.
Yes.
Ursula immediately hit me up. We had been messaged by them before because they were at Gamescom. So I just replied to their PR and said, hey, we'd love to cover this on Xbox. We do a written and video review per your embargo, because that's the stuff they care about, that you're not going to put it out early or just ignore what they ask you to not do. When it comes to like story spoilers and stuff, which some people really did with Dragon Age, the Veilguard, and just put shit out there that EA was like, please don't spoil it for people. They'd really like to let them experience it themselves. And those are the types of mistakes you can do. I remember around Halo Infinite's launch, some people who did not read the review guide put the opening cutscene into their videos, and they didn't know. And it's not that the PR will like immediately blacklist you and hate you. It's just at that point they go, oh.
Yeah, it's
so either either you take it down and you redo it real quick, or you leave it up and just hope that they're not too mad. But in the end, those are the types of things. It's never, I'm going to give this a better score than I would, or I'm just not going to even put out a review because it was going to be really bad. It's, I'm just going to make it clear why I feel this way, and it's still going to feel as professionally done as us group of very normal not professionals can do.
Okay, because especially with that, I suppose it kind of links into another thing I was going to ask about, the kind of rumors, speculation, and everything that happens with content creation as it is now. Being around a similar age as you would remember the magazines where there was the talk of the Nintendo Revolution for, I think it was roughly 3 years before anything had ever appeared, any hint of a new console had appeared. And that had its kind of its structure and its way, but now with social media, everything else, there are apparently now more insiders than there are currently developers inside a studio who are working on titles. And I don't wish to kind of label or place it upon anybody's shoulders, but it's more a general, I don't know if it's between clickbait or the belief of I'm informing the customers. You know, I'm trying to show how the sausage is made, where you can have there can be bigger issues and bigger roll-on effects to a piece of rumor or speculation going out there. So in your own instance, there's obviously from February this year, there was the report that you guys put out about Starfield and where it was going next. And your reporting was very direct in stating these elements that we confirmed to these points, that lead us to believe this is where this outcome is going to, what the outcome is going to be. And it was very structured and very professional in that sense. How much discussion went around between John and yourself or Nick or anybody? Was it a singular person call? Was it something you all discussed as a group to go, do we feel confident? Do we stand behind it? And are there moments where there's pushback and back and forth? Do you apply Occam's razor? Like how do you look at it more broadly before you go, this is what these things are telling us? I'm interested in that process.
So with the Starfield one, it was John seeing a thing, believing that thing, double checking on that thing with other people who could know about that thing, bringing it to us and us discussing it. And it was like, well, I mean, if you have actual proof, like writing an, it's very much like what Jez does. If it's an article on the website, it is like a substantiated thing. If it's mentioned on a podcast, then it's the Nick level thing, which honestly, John and myself are trying to move the site away from, because so if you watch the podcast you saw a few weeks ago, he wanted to do a rumor mill, and John and I just said, no, not on that one. It's too weak. It's too far away. And then he just tweeted it out instead. And it was just that the Rocksteady is working on Batman and Sony's trying to money hat it. And it's like, okay, that game's not coming out for 5, 6, 7 years if it ever does. Money had it, trying to money had it now. What does that even mean? They've never fully money hatted one of those. They've only gotten a feature, like they've got an exclusive cutscene and Sonic and Shadows Generations.
And then even like, for WB, the publisher, there's Hogwarts Legacy, which was an additional mission and some cosmetics.
Yeah,
so
they get stuff. Like getting a whole game would be escalation, and plus it is very much in the what benefit do we get from it from saying it on a podcast? It's like nothing. Like an extra 1,000 or 2,000 clicks on a podcast is like for people that just watch that one segment is like 30 cents. Like we need, if it's a substantial thing that's feels important, and John stands by his report, he does not stand by the one word he used, which was planning instead of, was it like investigating? Or because when you plan, you're planning for potential outcomes. It's not a guarantee this is going to happen, but it's like, we're thinking about this. They're Christ, I can't think of the word everyone else. Like Tom Warren's really good about using that word. But instead of planning, which people take as an absolute, it was, they're looking, if they're ever going to do it, it's going to be after Shattered Space comes out. But when it's, I get a DM from someone I trust, and it's one person, but then you look at like Jason Schreier's reporting on Bloomberg today from Annapurna, and he talked to like 12. Like that actual reporting, if you can get it from a bunch of people, like when Tom Henderson on Insider Gaming said, like, I talked to a bunch of people and they all canceled an Assassin's Creed preview. Like, that's actual reporting that can be useful for people to know, and then is corroborated in something you can really trust. And every time those little rumors hit, it's just, all it does is piss off the devs, the publishers, and that's about it. Yeah. It's just not worth it.
Yeah, it's that little tick, but it seems to be there's almost a separation, which is why you were the first person I wanted to speak to. There's the separation between, in a sense, trying to be a publication, in a sense, in the old terminology, a publication, a group, a team that has a particular standard, an approach, a style, and a substantial product that they put out. But then that is kind of being balanced against the way that the content creators are currently out there, where it can be larger established groups like I consider the publication groups per se would be guys like yourself, Last Stand Media, Kind of Funny Games, where there are products, it may be reviews, it can be video, it can be audio, it could be written up on a website, but it's about having a product that comes out with a very controlled standard. And when you then compare it to an MBG, a Dreamcast guy, or any one of the many content creators out there who are basically doing what I'm doing here, be 40 years old, graying in the beard, and talking to a camera. um, when that's the content that they're creating, there's not a structure, there's not a set approach to it. So it almost feels that you need to pepper these things to create the engagement. And with those rumors, even the small ones, I wonder on that, is there any point where some of those rumors that have come to Nick when he's spoken, when he's talked them out, because he generally keeps them back from you, are there any that have come out that you're like, oh, I I actually heard that myself from a different source?
It's always I've told him this many times, and he swears it's not. But I don't care at all about insider stuff. But people seem to like DMing or messaging me about it to see if I've heard. So like I will have 3 or 4 people all ask me if I've heard the same thing, and then they're all I know they're all talking to each other, all saying, "Oh yeah, I heard that too," and then invariably I just think every time, "Oh, you've all heard it from essentially the same guy," but none of you will tell each other who your source is because that's not normally a thing people do. So you're all hearing it from the same guy and then corroborating the same guy to each other back and forth. Like that's what really happened, I think, around the Xbox showcase this year. Everyone was way off on everything. Only a few people really knew anything, and and even then, they're not the types who really talk a bunch. They might joke or hint a few things. Like I think Rand said like 1 or 2 things he had heard, but nobody knew most of the show, which had happened the year before they locked down YouTube's back end. So
yeah, which that's been an amazing kind of change now. Everybody's a lot more a lot more careful about what they're saying because, well, it unfortunately is a side effect element. A content creator, an L never sits. Like being wrong about something is that's okay. I've got 6 hours of streams ahead this week, and I'm just going to talk my way through it. Whereas if Jason Schreier reports incorrectly and reports something that is proven to be false or is tainted information or without the right sourcing, his job is on the line, and that there is ultimately that difference.
And we are not journalists. We're not like we're lucky enough to be friends with some, like Tom Warren, who is a really cool guy, but we are seen as press by companies. We are not seen as creators. We are in there. We're on the press side, and there's a very strong delineation. Like you're either press or you're creator. You're never really both. More trusted creators can still get stuff early. Xbox likes giving like Colt and Boom sometimes and some other people early access or previews on things, but they are still on the content creator side, like the Jeff Rubenstein side of stuff, whereas we would be on the assembly PR side of stuff, and it's never the twain shall meet in pretty much any of those companies. Like even a smaller publisher like Focus Interactive, they have we used to be their creator, now we are their press. Like when I did Space Marine 2, we were press now, so it was a different person I talked to.
That's a kind of, I imagine there's a great deal of pride in that. Over the years, you've gone from being the creator group to a press group, and that's ultimately where you've wanted to go. With that press, that I'm interested in it more because as well here, this is about how the sausage is made, but there's something that a lot of people don't understand about interviews when it comes to bigger people. You've had on a great variety of Xbox developers and other content creators. And while I do love, back in the day, I used to just always throw you guys the question to ask the guest, what's the best thing about your job that nobody knows about? Because there's always something exciting behind the scenes. But it's a very unique thing. You've sat down and spoke with Phil Spencer for the podcast anniversary, your 100th episode, and I don't think a lot of people understand how those sorts of things happen. So I just want to walk through it quickly. This would be my understanding: is that you guys would be set up, ready. You've done all the technical checks. You know exactly what you're doing. a Jeff Rubenstein or a PR person comes into the call, goes, okay, Phil is like 10 minutes away, uh, you know, ask what you're going to ask. There's this, there's that. We have a hard out in 10 minutes. And then he comes in, hey guys, you hit record and off you go. It finishes. Okay, thanks guys. Maybe a little bit of chit chat and then they're out. Is that how it's still run today?
Surprisingly, no.
No.
It was.
Oh, wow.
So Phil is in Nick's Discord. He has talked one time. He said, Merry Christmas. He mainly just likes, he's also on our forums, but it is really, he said thank you when people say happy birthday each year generally, but it is mostly just to see what people are talking about in the community. So he doesn't interact with us or ever really talk to us, but he will talk. I think the appearance with him was essentially Nick pinging him, seeing if he was interested at all. Microsoft PR getting very mad that he pinged him directly instead of going to PR. Going through PR, setting it all up. I think Phil intimating, yes, I would very much like to do this. Let's go ahead. And then I don't think we gave them the exact questions. We gave them the general tone of what we were going for. It was just going to be about, It wasn't going to be about anything like industry-wise. It was just him coming on to congratulate us in some light banter about his history in gaming and that type of stuff. So in the thing you're in now, StreamYard, down in the bullpen, like if someone isn't in the call, they're down there, they can hear everything. Or if they turn the camera off, you can hide their camera so they can still be there. And if they have to speak up. So they were down in the bullpen from PR. They joined us, I don't know, like 10, 15 minutes before interview time. Phil popped in like 5 to 10 minutes before interview time. We just chatted a whole bunch. Once it was time to go, we knew I think we had 12 minutes was our like limit or something like that. And we ended up going like 13 or 14 because he was just like wanted to answer something. It might have been, I think 10 and we went 12 or 12 and we went 13. But, and when it ended, we ended up talking for like another 10 minutes to him. So it was like, well, just but it's, there's always like when he speaks, he is speaking now as a person on the chair at Microsoft, a world dominating, pretty evil organization. But thankfully he seems nice and a lot of people at Xbox seem okay. But, so it was really it was like interviewing anyone else, which is from what I've heard, he's it for that when it comes to executives, because everyone else is a corporate robot that is always on, knowing that anything they say can raise or lower the stock market, and they just clam up. But yeah, no, Phil was just very normal. He was very nice. The PR people are always great. Assembly's always really good to work with. I've only worked with the UK. I haven't worked the US side at all. But it really was very similar to having someone on for like a short chit chat, and it didn't feel as big as it was. And then he was going to be back on for episode 200, but then it wasn't just a Starfield thing we did. Like everything was popping off for them with all the ports leaking, and we would have been the first thing he would have talked to. And he didn't end up talking for a long time. So that knocked him off of 200. So I'm going to try and push them to get him for 250 because that's only 20 episodes away.
Well, I'd be very happy to see very happy to see
I
that.
Highly doubt it'll happen. If we can ever get him on again, it's probably going to be like 300 or something. But who knows? It's all wishful thinking.
Oh, that's all right. It's all milestones in the future. There's just things to look forward to. With that, the pressure and everybody looking at how those big moments are, and that you kind of go, as soon as you're in there, it's just relaxed. It's easy. Is there anyone else that you've interviewed or met face to face where it's kind of been that moment for yourself that you go, oh wow, like this person's responsible for this element of my childhood? And who was it?
It's really happened twice. So first we had Seamus Blackley on, and it was really funny.
Yes, it was.
So it was like for weeks beforehand, he was torturing Nick, and John and I knew closer to the end of that time that he wasn't, because we're like, my God, he really seems like the biggest a-hole of all time, and he was going to crack. And like this guy who was one of the main things that got me back into consoles after I'd really fallen off them because I wasn't a huge N64. I always had everything, but I was getting way more into PC. Then the Xbox hit, and it was kind of just like a really easy to use PC, so it was great. And here's the friggin' one of the main, if not the main people behind it existing at all. And he's really funny, and he's just being a complete dick and really screwing it to Nick, and Nick has no idea. And I could see Seamus was about to crack, and so I put us live real early so that we could keep going, and he finished it off. But the other one would be Jason Ronald, who we had on the show and was just incredibly nice. He came in on his Saturday off, drove up to the office, just sat in an empty conference room and hung out with us for the entire show. Was super nice, answered every question, like just a really cool guy to hang out with. And then when we're in Gamescom eating out one night, as I put in like the travel log and we had pictures and stuff online, he just walked over from his hotel, took a train to where we were, and just hung out for almost 2 hours just talking. Like just talking about stuff and giving us really fun anecdotes, like nothing crazy. Just like, hey, by the way, Quick Resume took like 7 years, like multiple years to make. Like it wasn't really quick, and it was one person's passion project because they're an incredibly brilliant person who said, I think I can do this. And then he tasked them, and he's like, okay. And then he was like, holy crap, I think this might actually work. Like those types of inside baseball things are amazing, and you just see someone who's like, oh, my favorite console ever to use as a piece of hardware has been the Series X and the Series S even. Like, there's just nothing that works this easy and is this performant compared to, like, a good PC at the time. It just... And I try and use my kid's PS5, and it drives me insane with the UI being such a pain in the ass, even though it's very pretty on my HDR display.
Oh, yes, it is.
But I've got Jason Ronald, and I'm just hanging out and drinking a beer while he's sitting there chatting with us, and I'm just like... What a weird life. I did not think I was on this path a couple years ago.
No, but it's also those moments that kind of make you stop and go, Jesus, where am I going to be 3 years from now? Like it's always that gross. But
well, yeah, that was like right after Gamescom. We got invited to the Dragon Age preview. It's like, we'll fly out there, we'll put you up in a hotel, which of course people immediately say, oh, they're buying your good preview. And it's like, no, they know most people don't have the money to come all the way to San Francisco to play the game. Like, a lot of the Ubisoft ones are over the cloud. And it's good, but it's not being there in person and getting to... Like, I got to interview 2 people who were making the game for half an hour. I had no idea I was going to be doing that. I had to come up with every question off the cuff. And they were like, at the end, they were like, oh, that was a lot of fun. That was really good. You asked a lot of good questions. Like, good, because I had no idea I was doing this until right before they told me to walk up and do it. So
I imagine you feel a bit like Wallace and Gromit putting the train tracks down in front of you as you're getting to them.
Well, I was lucky because I really know Dragon Age. Like, I love the series, and I knew it really well, so I could ask a bunch of questions about it. It wasn't like, oh, I'm coming to cover this thing as someone new to it, like some people there were. Yeah, it was like a skill I had never tried before, and it ended up working pretty well.
Yeah, well, I will say the preview coverage and the approach that you took for it, like, yes, there were some content creators who just kind of took the embargo and rules and just tossed it out the window and went, hey, let's talk about what they're doing. No, please. I imagine there's a PR team at EA who are hairless.
It's pretty much, I imagine they expect it to happen when you have that many people around. Thankfully, it wasn't too bad. It was pretty much... There are some choices from previous games that will come into the next one, and you get to set that up. And they didn't want to show how that gets set up because it's cool. But it's not going to pull everything in from the entire trilogy, which I know will disappoint some people. But as we see with Mass Effect 3, it is way easier to make a ton of branching choices than it is to bring a billion branching choices together in a giant AAA game like this. That was the magic trick of Baldur's Gate 3, but that required Larian spending 10, 15 years making an engine that could do it.
And even then, they wanted 2 cracks at it before they were willing to really push forward into it. An interesting kind of side note for the Dragon Age event was also one of the first big press events that you went to as press, and you then run into the other content creators and Twitter personalities and YouTubers and press that are there for all of these other groups. How is it meeting and then communicating? Where do you find the parallels are with the different styles of content and how people approach them. Like there was Paris Lily there was Shinobi 602, and so many others. I'm just running through the list of names in my head.
Mm.
How is it then meeting other people in the same realm where there's different approaches? Like, do you trade notes and go, hey, I really liked your...
Everyone in person is just really nice. Like they're not generally what they're like at all online, or they're a lot lesser in your face version of that, because people will be like on to be online. I only met people because they introduced themselves to me. Like Paris walked up to me and shook my hand and was like, hey. I was like, oh, hey, Paris. And same with Shinobi, because I had no idea what he looked like. So he was just sitting next to me for like 10 minutes in the last interview and was like, oh, by the way, I'm Shinobi, and shook my hand. I was like, oh, hey, man. Like I saw like Lucy James and Timur and other people. It was similar in Gamescom, where I did introduce myself to Mike Minotti, because how can you not?
Yes.
And Lex Luddy from Start Menu. But like I saw Jan and Dan from Giant Bomb, and I was just like, it's cool to see them, but they were obviously busy, so I'm not going to bother them. So I think depending on how outgoing you are online, if you're that outgoing online, you're probably that outgoing in person, and I'm not like the schmoozer. I'm not great at introducing myself to people, but I think I'm kind of nice if once we know each other. So
Yeah.
it was like that. I just sat down, talked a lot with the devs and people that were there, going over stuff. They started showing me OBS. I was like, oh yeah, I know all this. The only thing I wish I had done was set OBS to 4K, but they didn't want us messing with it. But
no, it's kind of fair call. You're like, I know that I don't want people to break things for me, so I'm not going to break stuff for you.
mm-hmm.
All right. Well, winding down with everything you've kind of grown and learned. There's plans for the future. Xboxera is kind of broadened out. You've done the incredible hardcover book. You've now got Console Wars fully funded. And there's always this approach, it seems, to be able to just not just make something that's a great element of content for people to consume, but also to engage community. How do you find and learn with that, where community can have criticisms that go against your core beliefs, but you also at the same time want to have people feel that they're heard and that their opinions are being at least taken on board? How do you balance all of those projects? So there's the pressures for reviews.
Terribly. So pretty much it was all John did the entire year. It was the majority of what he did outside of doing like the podcast and headlines. He was just working on the card game. Funnily enough, the book that is right there.
Right over there. Of which I have my digital version. Thank you very much.
It cost us $15,000 to make. We didn't make a penny off of it. It just cost us that much because it took too long, and then all the shipping got jacked way up. That's why Console Wars is like $15 to ship, because that is how much it costs for a very low yield item to be shipped globally, with everything leaving the UK pretty much. So a lot of the Console Wars was far better balanced than the book. It's all done on time. It's all done. It's ready to go. All that type of stuff when the Kickstarter was up. If we did a 360 book, I think the only way it would happen is if we got a lot of help from Microsoft, like, because it can't be a book that covers every game, because there's like 10 times as many games. So it's going to be it would be a focus on the biggest games and having the community help get all that together. Probably not having people write stuff in, because that was a major problem in getting them to actually fill their stuff in and get it to us. Took extra months, and some people still never sent it, and they got mad it wasn't in. It was like, we reached out to you every way we could for half a year.
So we cannot put something that you haven't written into a book that requires writing.
Yeah, it's if we do the 360 one, I think a little more foreplanning and help from a big company would have to happen for us to be able to do it at this point, because books are big, they're heavy. It's really hard to make a lot of money off of them, let alone make any money off of them, really. The card game's done good. It's done well. Like, it's not going to turn the company around or make us rich or anything unless we're able to get it into stores or something like that. So if we do more projects like this, it has to be stuff that we can really afford. That's like the big thing. It has to be something that we can afford to do, that we don't, because like our website views and our YouTube views just plummeted around August because I had been doing everything on video that I could. We had Chengiz and Ursel and Gyoza keeping up with just tons of reviews, but as far as like news, it was pretty much just Chengiz. There was almost nothing for the SEO stuff you just have to do. Like, when is Helldivers due coming to Xbox? And you write 300 words simply saying, no idea, it's never been announced. Hopefully it does. Gets you way more money in ad money than a 150-hour Persona review will get you. Like, sometimes 5 times as much. It's really depressing, but you need to spend 10 minutes writing those over and over again, and that's the stuff that rolls and goes. And that all fell by the wayside with the card game. So if we're going to keep doing more, it's figuring out a way to not have it just completely yoink website stuff, because it did. We didn't balance it at all, especially with the book. It was all John and Predrag did. It was Predrag's baby. That's why it looks so amazing. Yes. But then, like, for John and for Abe, OBM, who helped write a lot, and Mike Skiles and other people, like, they were just, it was all they were doing for a long time, and it still was like a year or two later or something. The card game was a lot better, but it did pull the only other full-time person on the team off of most things for a long time. So I think we need to learn how to balance.
So that balance is still something you're learning. You're getting there, but it's a
resource issue. Like, we're trying to grow into a real business, and part of doing that was to try and do these things to see if they could help us grow more. The book really hurt overall. The card games really helped. So something more on the card game level, but figuring out a way to not have it dominate someone's schedule so severely, I think is the way to balance it. If we can get there, especially if we can make roughly twice what we're making, maybe we could have Nick join us. And then at that point, I honestly do think, as much as I make fun of him, if he could focus on it for work, he would help me do, because John's the really creative guy. He has the ideas. It would let John focus more on the creativity and ideas and less on the boring business stuff that Nick and I can keep going. That would be a big thing. It's just need a little bit more always there when we needed help.
Okay. So it's more, that you have the creativity, the ideas are there, and it's just and
it'll always look good because of Predrag.
Oh, yes. So it's just now the execution, just building up. I believe you're planning to do a subathon, or your Extra Life stream is coming up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that'll be November 2nd. So those, I do them every year whenever they do their Extra Life Day. It's a Saturday, normally early November. So I'll just be going most of the day. I think I normally went like 10, 12 hours or so. It will go through the podcast, so I'll be hopping into StreamYard to then shift and produce the podcast just in here, which is a lot easier to do. It doesn't look nearly as good, though. But yeah, so that is November 2nd, starting probably roughly 10, 11, maybe noontime U.S. Eastern Standard. It's for actually a hospital that's really going to need it after the hurricane just hit. St. Petersburg's Johns Hopkins All Children's Hospital.
Okay.
I have a ton of giveaways. So we've already gotten $300. I put it for a grand total, and people have already done 300 because they're maniacs. And that's only 3 donations. That's how much people are giving. But like every $25 to $50 I'll do a giveaway. So I've got a bunch of codes that PR companies have been nice enough to send me. So either on our Discord, which is discord.gg/Xboxera, or on our forum, I'll be doing giveaways on both. So anyone can enter, no cost. It's just, you can watch and hang out and have fun, and while we try and make some money for kids.
No, that sounds fantastic. And hopefully get Nick off his ass. And as you finish your stream, he picks it up and takes it on. Because, Like, come on, he can just sit there and play Rocket League for a couple of hours.
It would be,
it's all for the kids.
it would be going. Well, no, it would be taking over his whole Sunday.
I
It's
don't
fine
see
by
this
me.
a
I think
bad
his wife
thing.
just gets mad.
That's an issue for Nick to deal with, not us. We're not involved. So, in finishing up, after diving into history, jumping into everything with such a gusto, honestly. Like you haven't shied away from anything. It's been about, okay, do it and build up the skills over time. It is kind of one of those key things that you see with really great content creators and groups. Is just, I want to do this. I want to build. I want to create, but being willing to go learning on the job. Like let's
Like,
see
yeah,
how it
if
goes.
you like the way our podcasts look and run or anything, that has just been me figuring it out. A lot of it was I was doing this full time and was like, I would like to stream stuff too. So we had a Twitch channel I was using, eventually swapped back to the main YouTube channel, but that's how I learned OBS essentially, was just doing that and saying the podcast is hideous. Please let me make this look better. So it has all just been jumping in and doing and learning OBS, and like our shows generally work because like if it starts at 6 p.m. my time, I'm normally about 4 p.m. is when I start prepping and making sure everything's working right, everything loads up correctly. I've got the 4 monitors so that I can have all the various different things up at all the time so that I need them. It's been a huge both money and time investment to get it going, but now it is in a place where it's like I know how it works. I've done it so many times now.
Have you got it down to that 5-10 minute prep time where you can just walk in? Yep.
Yeah, I could get it all open. I could get like my OBS and everything is all saved. It's all backed up. If anything breaks, I can always just reload. But I still like to go through and make sure all the topics are set, all the Patreon questions are set and done. The big thing is like all I really do is work most of the time. Like I have been that, and people look at it and say it's the unhealthy numbers, but it has been like some weeks it's just like 70 hours because games are really long and take a very long time to beat and get through, and producing all these shows and trying to get all this stuff done, it just ends up taking a lot of time. So a lot of it has been finding that balance and not pushing into things I truly can't stand. So
Okay.
yeah, it's rough. It's hard to say because you don't want to just say to someone, "Oh, just work all the time and don't make much money for it." But it has been the reason we've grown a lot is because we all just keep putting in a ton of work to try and make it do so, and thankfully people have liked it enough to keep backing us. Like we got our CEO of Xboxera was just signed up on our Patreon, Torn Raptor, which is the $250 US tier, one of one, made at his request. Like that type of support. We've got 2 other people who are grand benefactors, which is the $150 tier. And I don't think one might be from America, but a lot of them, like, the Australian dollar versus the US when he's paying a lot more than $250. Like it's crazy the amount of support we've been able to get. Incredibly like humbling and nuts to look at every time, because otherwise, instead of doing like the reviews and the live streams and even the podcast, they don't make the money that spending all day typing up a bunch of dumb bullshit SEO did. Like, why does why do sites like The Gamer, and they're part of these giant networks that have 800, 8,000, 10,000 people all just writing crappy SEO articles all day? And not everyone at The Gamer is crappy, but like they're all a part of like Valnet and Future and all these humongous conglomerates that the only way they really make their money back is ad money. So it's nice we don't have to.
It's also with that approach, it's how do you work against a larger conglomerate where a couple of cents here on these articles that are spread across 100 different websites, all going through the search engines, those cents add up to kind of manage it all. Whereas a more targeted and set approach to go, this is how we do these things, and putting the content out there and hoping that people come on board, but not letting that content stagnate or vary, making sure that it's just It's always there. Like the podcast, every Sunday morning, my time, it goes up. I know that it's going to look good. I know that Nick's going to keep talking about Nintendo stuff, and I'll...
Yeah, I got into Zelda Echoes of Wisdom thanks to the very nice people at Nintendo's USPR, so he'll be talking about that.
Ah, excellent. Well, I'll be sure to tune in for that, because he will probably he will be very verbose on it. Probably an hour of the show, maybe.
Conservatively.
Conservatively. All right, so my final question is, with everything that I've dug up about you, the questions I've asked, who do you want to see put under this sort of microscope? Like, 3 names or as many as you've got. Who would you like to learn more about, understand how they've approached their work, and also just some of the realities of the work? Because whenever you get asked questions, there's always a few minutes later you go, I'd love to know what this person would say about it. And if
That's
I manage...
I'm trying to think. I've been lucky enough. Most of the people I was like Kei Asante, I'm getting pretty friendly with because he lives right near me. I know way too much about Nick and John. It is a tough one. Give me a sec. I know a lot about Boom. He's a nice guy. Crikey.
See, that's it. It's not just the content creators, developers, PR people.
Yeah, that's where my mind started going, because like with MVG, he's got his own channel, but there are a lot of people out there that don't. I would say even though he has his own channel, like this type of deep dive, Josh Sawyer, I think would be great, because he is such an interesting person. He is that mix of super smart and talented guy, but just the greatest shit poster in like the history of social media I've seen. Like it's this dichotomy of this love of the classics and just being like you're really funny out of nowhere person.
And also, I have to say, some of the best bike repair tips I've ever seen. I don't ride bikes, but I think I could probably pull apart and repair one.
I would know which parts are shit very clearly. Yeah, Josh. I'm always curious. Like Genevieve St. Onge of Pop Agenda, super nice. Married now to Greg Miller of Kind of Funny. Like getting that type of deep dive now. Being a mom, running a PR company, being married to such a big boisterous personality that's in the coverage industry of the thing you represent companies on. Like the balance there on stuff. While being a parent, while living in an incredibly, like moving to a different country and living in an incredibly expensive city. Because they are always good to work with. Like I've always liked them. Cuphead, and then a whole bunch of other stuff we just did. Was it Wish You Were Here? Or forget the name. It's like that really funny British one that John was streaming and people got mad because it's not on Xbox because they're children. Like those types, because I've worked with PR people so much now. I never thought I would, but I have worked with them, and it would be really curious to see it from their side and to get their perspective a bit more on it. Because I talked with a few, especially like from Xbox, while I was there waiting to watch like Expedition 33, and I was just chit-chatting with one of the guys running it, and it's really interesting because they have to have like it's that mix. You have a friendly relationship, working relationship with, and sometimes you can become friends with someone, but that can't interfere with your work in a way. And it's the other side from me where it's like, well, I've got a really friendly relationship with this PR company, but I think this game's not good at all. Like I gave Shadows of Doubt a bad score, but I know when I work with that company again, they're going to have gone through the review to see why I said that. And I think that they will say that in their minds, yeah, no, this is how he feels. It's not just being a dick.
Josh Sawyer and Genevieve, I will endeavor, and if I manage to get them on, I will say that you are the person who put
Josh
them forward.
Would not know me, but I did talk to him one time in a DM, asking him if he could get me Pentiment music because I really wanted to use it, but it only plays once in the game. and it's a lot of other stuff's happening, so you can't just use that music in the review. And he sent me like 12 tracks that the team put together, which was amazing. And I don't know that Genevieve might know me because I've emailed her a bunch, but it's always just been about game reviews and stuff. They just gave me like Arco and I don't want to forget the names because they're really cool, but they were PC only. And I really wanted to take a look at them before the year was up because they start doing their it's end of year.
Yes.
They know game of the year lists are going to start up, so it's like, hey, do you want to check this one out? Do you want to check this one out? It's like, yes, I do. That's when I gave John the where the heck is it? There they are. So it was Arco, Mexico 1921, A Deep Slumber.
Okay.
Yeah, and then the one I gave to John, which, god damn it, I can't remember the name. What is it? Because I want to call it Thank Goodness You're Here. So like those are the games that, and Another Crab's Treasure, Little Kitty Big City, Harold Halibut, Content Warning, like they represent a lot of really cool smaller games. So it would be always very interesting to get her side on things for how that all works.
Also, yeah, just in my own personal interest of it is how are you approaching these game devs? Are game devs now coming to you? How
you know who
does
came
that
to
work?
them? They're now working with Annapurna Interactive. What's left of
Jesus.
that? They have taken over
Yes.
to be essentially, I think, the PR company to work with all the deals that Annapurna had been doing since all their employees are gone. So
Damn, she might be a little busy, but you know, always ask and hope. All right, thank you so much for your time, Jesse. We've gone
course.
over the original hour, but technical
No, it's
difficulties and everything. But appreciate your time. Thank you very much, and everybody. In the links down below, there will be all of the links through across all of Xboxera, including a link to the extra live charity stream. So go there, drop some money. It is for the kids. Help support hospitals. Without it, none of us would be here. All right. Thanks very much.
Thank you.